Eli Cabañas for World Risk and Insurance News here at the Marriott Marquis in New York for S&P's 2015 Insurance Conference. Cyber risk was on everyone's mind here at the meeting, especially in the wake of the high-profile breach of the U.S. federal government. Some suspect it was done by the same Chinese hackers involved in the cyber attack of Anthem and Premera Blue Cross. Here at the conference, we spoke with North Dakota Insurance Commissioner Adam Hamm about recent developments in cyber risk and cybersecurity. He is also chair of the NAIC's Cybersecurity Task Force and had this to say.
So I think there is a temptation out there right now to try and lump together the hackers from the recent attacks, whether it's Anthem, Premera, the recent one on the federal government, and to try and say, well, it's one set of bad actors doing all this. I think we need to be careful with that. It hasn't been determined who exactly was responsible for it. But for me, the bottom line is still the same. We need to step up our game, whether it's the business community, whether it's regulators, whether it's policymakers, whether it's consumers. All of us can be doing more to protect ourselves from the cybersecurity threat and to make sure that when there is a breach, we're doing everything we can to respond and recover in time. Whether or not TRIA would respond to a state-backed cyber attack is an open question. As you heard on the last panel of the day, it's a bit of a gray area as to whether or not TRIA would call that a, quote, act of terrorism, and whether there would be any sort of a federal backstop there. This may be an issue that Congress looks at going forward. You know, there is a couple of cyber bills that are working their way through the House and the Senate. It might be something that they include as a part of that. Also, they might want to go back into the language of TRIA and make it black and white that a cyber attack is a, quote, act of terrorism. But as we're sitting here talking today, that's an open question or a gray area at this point. The two bills that are working their way through Congress right now, one on the House side, one on the Senate side on cyber, there have been bills introduced over the course of the last couple of years kind of similar. It's about data breach notification, kind of similar to what state insurance regulators are going to be working on with respect to our Consumer Bill of Rights. So we have been working with our colleagues in the federal government as they progress on these bills in Washington to try to make sure that, number one, they don't preempt state insurance regulators from the work that we do protecting our consumers, our constituents, and then making sure that we're not overlapping what we're doing. So we're trying to do the best we can to work hand in glove with Congress because we know they have a role here to try predictably to set a standard, an overarching standard with respect to data breaches, but we just want them to understand and appreciate that as state insurance regulators, our primary goal is to protect the insurance consumers in each one of our states, and we have a say in this as well. One of the primary work streams for the NAIC's Cybersecurity Task Force this year is putting in place a set of best practices for our insurance company examiners so that beginning in 2016, anytime they do a financial exam or a targeted financial exam of an insurance company, there will be a set of best practices to test the cybersecurity protocols and processes of all insurance companies to make sure that they are robust and that they're doing everything they can to protect their policyholders. So the Consumer Bill of Rights that we're working on as a part of the Cybersecurity Task Force really goes to the fundamental job of all insurance commissioners in America, which is protecting consumers. Now, we have all learned over the course of the last number of months that there's only two sorts of companies that have been breached and companies that are going to be breached. So we're not putting in place a Bill of Rights that says there will be no more breaches, right? We know that's impossible. But what we want to make sure we have in this Consumer Bill of Rights for all insurers is a set of expectations. If you have a breach, here is what you are going to be required to do, and here's what you're going to be required to notify consumers of. From the consumer's perspective on this Bill of Rights, it will set out, here's what you as Joe Public can expect from your insurance company if your insurance company has a data breach and your information has been compromised. So it goes to the core of what we do as insurance commissioners, which is protect consumers. So I think what you can look for in the management of cyber exposure going forward is there's going to be more modeling of this risk. You're going to see more growth in the cyber liability insurance space. And going back to what regulators are doing, state insurance regulators, one of our work streams on the Cybersecurity Task Force is to do this supplement to the annual statement so that we're getting a much firmer understanding of exactly what's going on in that cyber liability market, both in terms of how much premium is being written, who the major players are in the market, and then probably most importantly, what sort of claims are going on? Are those claims being paid? If they're not being paid, why are they not being paid? So that we can not have a 30,000-foot understanding of this market, but a treetop level understanding to help us as regulators understand and kind of wrap our minds around, is there more that we need to be doing as we regulate the cyber liability market?
For more of the S&P Insurance Conference, visit the RIN TV On Demand Library.